All right, Chelsea fans, welcome back to another episode. That's right, of the London is Blue podcast. Hopefully, favorite Chelsea podcast out there, and a part of the Men in Blazers Media Network. Dan, one of your hosts here, alongside Nick. We're coming to you after Chelsea get a draw that feels like a loss against Bournemouth, a team that we have punched down on a bunch in previous years, but this did not feel like a result that we were expecting or hoping for. It just makes you wish that you could play Morecambe more regularly while staying in the Premier League, and just make a bunch of shrimp puns rather and jokes for a good 60 minutes with our friend Yan. Those were the days, Nick, and it was only this past weekend.
Those were the days. Yeah, for sure. I mean, if you want to feel better, you should go back and listen to that episode and all of the shrimp related, farm related jokes that were made at Morecambe's expense. But yeah, it's not a 3-word match review, Dan, but it feels like Groundhog's Day. We're coming up on Groundhog's Day in a couple of weeks. It's kind of a Groundhog's Day type of result if you've watched any of our last 5 matches. And we'll get into why.
Yeah, I mean, we can get into a whole lot of it. I think there's a reaction to another result in the Premier League that makes you feel like Chelsea have lost ground, are slipping up relative to other individual teams that are in striking distance coming up from behind, and then also losing ground on the teams that we were either previously ahead of or expiring to be ahead of in this Premier League season. It feels very, very odd to have a top 10 that has more individual teams like Bournemouth and Fulham and Nottingham Forest versus having a Tottenham and a Manchester United in it. It's a really weird. The 2024-25 Premier League, kind of bananas, Nick. I just like, that's my big takeaway is that, like, amongst all this craziness, a bunch of things that are not going right, haven't gone well, like, we're still doing a lot better than other teams. And maybe that's the kind of right mental framing to go into this. Like, yes, the result today didn't feel great for us, but we would still rather be us than a lot of other teams in the Premier League.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I think there's enough, quality in the team to put in more than your average performance, more regularly than a lot of other teams are capable. But there are also some things that are worrying. And I get chastised all the time for worrying or bringing up the things that are not so positive. And believe me, it's been in my Twitter inbox from friends and foes alike recently. And, I think on a 5-game tear, you have enough of a sample size to go, something's not right. It's five results in a row without a win. A couple of those were pretty terrible performances. I wouldn't really couch today's performance as terrible. I think it was a bad half, but there's some clear structural things that are going to be imperative for Chelsea to overcome to get to where we want to get to. And we'll talk a little bit about more later in the show.
Yeah, I did pull some 3-word match reviews to react to. It's Spanish Joe with the red, yellow, blues, because we learned a lot about what rules do or don't apply based upon who is in the VAR room and then who is actually officiating on the pitch. You had Tyson with the prioritized conference league, which I think, still given the squad size, you don't have to do too much prioritization around it. We're also not talking about a match again until March, so we've got time to focus out on that one. Our good friend Mr. George Smiley with the copy and paste. It's very, very timely. And then RJ with the clotheslined by cherries, because it definitely felt like a WWE match, even though, I mean, like, maybe we should just talk about the top. Like, it was a red card. It was a red card offense. The way that he laid the arm into Cucurella running away. And I think, unfortunately, Cucurella just has a rap, and I think that was leveraged against him. I'm not full conspiracy yet, Nick. This is not conspiracy Dan talking, but I'm pretty sure that Chelsea in the past 5 or 6 matches, yes, there are things that we could do better as a football team and as a football club on the pitch, 100%.
Yeah.
But when you also have the additional fuckery from the officiating, you're playing against 12. Maybe not 12, 11.5. You're playing against 11.5, and it's not fair.
Dan, I would say that we want to keep the expected fuckery less than 1 per game, right? Because if it's less than 1, fighting chance. We're basically on level playing field. If it's over 1, that's where we start to get into some difficult territory.
Or just needs to net out at a 0, right?
Yeah,
Like if there's expected
ideally.
fuckery for that of a 1 and the expected fuckery against, and it nets out as a 0, you're okay because everybody's even Stevens then. And look,
Yeah.
we're always inventing new metrics on the podcast. We love an expected metric.
I think this is our best
sorry
one
if
yet.
you're listening in shared company and we really screwed the explicit rating at the very, very top of the podcast. But at least you laughed, hopefully, before we start actually talking about some of those big structural problems that Nick mentioned.
We got to keep expected fuckery. I mean, that has to be a part of the show from now on. But yeah, I mean, it's look, it's really difficult, right? You go back and you look at the last 5 matches, and there are 3 distinct calls that could or should have gone our way that would have changed outcomes, right? And there's no doubt in my mind that if Bournemouth go down to 10 men and whatever was the 51st minute, second minute, whatever, that they would have had a really, really tough time getting fully back into the game like they did. That sort of thing changes outcomes, right? I'm not telling you that we would have won guaranteed. I'm telling you that it would have been very, very difficult for a foul that was committed and is a clear red card for them to fight on the way that they were fighting. They're a very disciplined team. They're a very good team. The last match, though, and I went back and kind of looked at the highlights from the one in September, was an incredibly physical game between these two teams. There were a lot of very questionable things that happened in that game. Notably, Anthony Taylor was the referee, so, expected fuckery 3, 4, or 5. But, I mean, this is the sort of thing that, I don't want to look back on this season and go, man, if only those 10 calls had gone our way, we would have finished third. It's like, God, it feels like it goes against us more often than it goes for us.
It does feel that way. And again, not leaning full into conspiracy, but we just want to call out that at the end of the day, though, still, it's incumbent upon the 11 players actually on the pitch and not the additional 12th man that exists that is either for or against you. If it's a blue shirt against you, you still have to get the job done yourself. And so, I actually went with a 3 match review of Our Chelsea's Back. Just a little bit of a callback to if we have Our Chelsea Back chance.
Whoa.
Only just about a month and a half ago that we have our chaotic Chelsea back once again with injury crises, with players looking to depart, players advocating for half-season loans to go play as a center back. It's really, really weird stuff going on in Chelsea at the moment, and it doesn't always make for the most fun moment other than getting a chance to pod with you, Nick.
Dan's spicy today. I love it. I went with blip, dip, slip. We were talking about a blip after 3 games. I think we're talking about a dip after 5 games. I don't want it to lead to a slip from where we are in the table. We will talk more about the math and where that needs to go for Chelsea to finish in the top 5 and get Champions League football next year. But, if this run continues, it makes it mathematically very, very challenging to reach these stated objectives that I think we all realistically anticipated for this season. So I would love to be wrong and not end up in 7th is kind of what I'm saying.
There you go. And look, show notes have a ton of ways you can help the podcast, leaving 5-star reviews on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, getting involved in our Discord community, subscribing on YouTube, getting involved in our weekly newsletter, Loans Blue Dispatch, but also just at the top, remind you, getting closer to the deadline to join us on our trip to London. Over 20 people now have signed up. And look, we can never promise a win, Nick. We're not going to do that, potentially, because the last time we took a trip and played Tottenham, historic loss at Stamford Bridge that we unfortunately had to participate in. But what we can promise, if there is a historic loss like that, the post-match sad drinks, pretty epic.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, look, I feel against Andrew's Tottenham that we have a pretty good chance at home to
as long as he's still there.
Yeah, well, hey, knock on wood,
New manager bounce when we go there. That's the odds. That's what's going to happen.
Yeah, but look, we are going to London. Please email us, contact@London is Blue Podcast. If you have any questions or concerns, you want to extend your trip, I'll get you in touch with our friends at XL Tours. They will help you manage everything. We realize that these sorts of things are not the cheapest thing in the world. London's a pretty expensive city. Air travel and everything can be expensive, but if you would like to enjoy a few match days with us in London, a few pub visits, and a live show, and some other shenanigans to be determined later, we'd love to have you. DM contact at London is Blue Podcast. Let's do it.
All right. Well, let's just remind people again about the match if they are listening to this or watching it without watching the match, which I don't know, might be advisable depending upon how you feel about actually consuming the match first. That was Bournemouth this past Tuesday, January 14th, 2025 in the Premier League at Stamford Bridge. Was a 2-2 scoreline. Palmer in the 13th minute, a penalty. It do be, this is a rough penalty situation in the 50th minute for Bournemouth. Semenyo with a really, that was a fantastic hit. That was a really great strike. As much as I hate giving credit to other teams, that was good from him the 68th minute. Then Reece James also countered with a phenomenal hit. As our one random stat would tell you from our good friend Sam, CFC Central, that was Reece James' first league goal in 885 days.
Yeah, it's over 2 years, right? That's what the TNT interview said after the game. So yeah, it was very, very good to see. It was interesting before he took that shot. It was him and Cole was yelling at one of the guys, I think, at the end of the wall to scrooch in. And I think, it might have distracted everyone on the Bournemouth side that Cole was going to try and rip one in the upper 90. And old Reece, nice little curler, couldn't have placed it better with his hand right on the post in. Beautiful shot.
And Nick, why don't you run people through the lineup just to remind them how we set up, how we put ourselves in formation, and the fact that we did get very close to the 5 subs. We got 4 of them this time. So
close.
Hat tip to Enzo Maresca.
Robert Sanchez in between the sticks. Dicey performance, but fine. Caicedo playing as right back to start this game. Achiampong, Levi Colwill, and Marco Correa as your back line. Enzo Fernandez and Romeo Lavia in midfield, which meant that Enzo was pretty much pushed up into the number 10 most of the game. Jadon Sancho, Cole Palmer, Noni Madueke, and Nico Jackson with subs of Reece James in the 56th minute for Lavia, Tosinata Rabayo in the 71st minute for Josh, Pedro Neto in the 81st minute for Noni, and Joao Felix in the 81st minute for Caicedo. Unused subs, Jorgensen, Malo Gusto, Renato Vega makes the bench. Fascinating. Christopher Nkunku, fascinating. And then Mark Guiu, also on the bench.
Yeah, and then again, so some of those top line stats, we had 57% in possession of the ball to their 43%. Our expected goals was 2.45 to their 1.23. Of that 1.23, 0.8 plus of that was the penalty. Just putting it out there, which is their single big chance in the match. We had 3 big chances off 26 total shots. So their 7 shots. Their goalkeeper came alive and was the SofaScore player of the match. 8 goals saved to the 1 that we saved in this match. Again, we weren't facing a ton of shots, so it kind of makes sense that you would also not have a lot of work to do in that regard. And then, 2 yellow cards for us to their 3. Shockingly, I'm double checking it again. 0 on the red card count. I just had to confirm that I was not hallucinating through the entirety of this match. I don't think there was a shithouse moment in the match, Nick, but
I don't think so. I mean, there was quite a bit of contention in this match, but I don't remember a pure. I mean, maybe Cole's double pump on the first goal, which was pretty shithouse, but I'm gonna categorize that more as pure skill.
Okay, we'll leave that one there. Look, we're gonna get into a conversation about just the bad day rut. I think there's a couple players that we can provide some positive recognition for in this match because they continue to be counted upon, relied upon. And then I think there's some questionable performances from the manager and the players that we want to dig into. But we'll do that after our ad break. So stay tuned and we'll be right back. So we talked a little bit about how we were feeling, Nick, after this match, which is not great. But I think amongst the last 5 or 6 matches we played, it's definitely not the worst of the matches we've played. It's definitely not the most least inspiring of those, which is a lot of half compliments. It's like one of those terrible compliment sandwiches.
Not the worst, sure.
Yeah. Cole Palmer scored a goal, but you guys didn't do a whole lot else beyond that.
Yeah.
But Nico Jackson definitely contributed from everything else beyond scoring in this game. I mean, that's your compliment sandwich for the attack that was seemingly beyond that in a situation where we have wingers who don't want to shoot the ball. We have Nico Jackson, who at some points is able to pull three players in, move around them, and to lay up one of the most sumptuous assists we've seen this season, and then can get into great positions and just can't bag the goal in this match and in this moment. He's our second highest contributor in the team right now in Premier League goals behind Cole Palmer. Like, I just have this weird type of situation where I know people are like, we need another striker. And I agree. I think we need competition for Nico Jackson. But at the same point in time, is Nico Jackson my biggest complaint and problem with this team right now? I don't think so. I like if I'm listing like 1, 2, and 3, like, I think I'm looking at right back, I'm looking at our center back performance, and I'm looking at our wingers before I'm looking at Nico Jackson. And that's just me. Maybe you have a different take on where you kind of rank him as a problem or striker as a problem for this team. But he is not at the top of my list at this moment, even after I know he had some questionable shots. Like, he was still getting into position, getting into places. And like we've seen him earlier this season be able to convert those. And so I do think it is a bit of a rut for him that he can work out of because he's still contributing in the game. Like, he's taking other players out to create space for Cole Palmer, to create space for Jadon Sancho. And like some of the other players just aren't doing it. Like, you go back multiple seasons now. Last season was the first season since like 2019 that Chelsea had like since like 2017-18, where Chelsea had multiple scorers in the Premier League at double-digit goals. Like, we have had a scoring problem for a long time, and typically it has not been, previous seasons it definitely has been the striker. Last season it wasn't with Nico and Cole. This season he's about to hit double digits. Like, to me, he's not the primary problem. I don't understand why people are couching him as the primary issue.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. I mean, I look at everything that he does to make the team run. Cole Palmer is a phenomenal player. Cole Palmer is not working nearly as hard as Nico Jackson is for the team, right? And that's partly by design, right? Yeah, you don't want Cole Palmer wasting his energy chasing lost causes when we know that his energy is spent in very, very purposeful ways once you get in and around the 18-yard box. But what Nico Jackson does is pretty damn well rounded. I understand the frustration around not scoring. I was frustrated myself on the header. I thought the header should have been an easy goal, right? I mean, there's no doubt about it. The one that skips up on him, people were really frustrated about that, where Noni kind of hit the ball into the ground and kind of skipped up on him. That's a fucking impossible chance to finish. Like, the ball was up at like knee height when he tried to volley that in. It's like
that was a great move by Noni. To be
great.
fair, like, Noni had a pretty strong kind of like at least contribution performance on the right. I don't know if I would say the same about Jadon Sancho, but like, you go back to your point about Nico.
Yeah, I mean, they were the first half they were vibing. I think the problem is less about Nico and more about like, where are the other goals coming from in this team? Because I think, notably Thomas Tuchel was at the game and everyone was all in a fervor about that and all whatever. And I think, you folks allowed themselves to feel nostalgic for those days. And that's, it's a fair enough point, though. That was a pretty great half season for sure. But as I was thinking about that half season, Reece James contributing to the goals, Ben Chilwell, Marcus Alonso contributing to the goals, right? Mason Mount, Hakim Ziyech. Like, it wasn't just that you had to have, your Kai Havertz or Olivier Giroud scoring the goals. It was that you had the collective contributing to the goals, and we have not had that. I mean, I've been working on a little bit of some thoughts for this one. Our scorers are Cole Palmer on 14, Nicholas Jackson on 9, Noni Madueke on 5, Enzo Fernandez 3, Nkunku 2, Sancho 2, Reece James 1, Moises Caicedo 1. Reece James has played like 13 total minutes this season, already has a goal. Most assists, Palmer, Sancho. So Palmer's on 6, Sancho's on 4, Jackson's on 4, Fernandez is on 4, Madueke on 3, Caicedo 2, Neto 2, Joao Felix 1. So 14-9, huge drop off. 6-4, huge drop off. Like, we're scoring a lot of goals, but we are so over dependent on two guys to do it. And when those two guys aren't ripping them in at every chance that we get, we oftentimes lose grip in games where we're not on coast mode, where we don't dominate early. I think we're flat track bullies. I don't see, things going super wrong in a match and us fighting back very often to scrap a result. I think today's an exception to that rule, but that's not really been the case. Once we lose a grip in a game, it's pretty damn well gone. Enzo Maresca even mentioned that the heads dropped after the penalty today. So I think they know that their margin of error when they're not scoring and they're not being super clinical is very, very, very small. And that is the bigger problem to me. Yes, I want Nico Jackson to score more goals. I want Nico Jackson to score 30 goals in a season and be the Golden Boot winner and be the guy that I believe that he can be. But we also need a hell of a lot more than what we're getting from Madueke and Enzo Fernandez. And when Nkunku eventually gets a chance to play or not, him, Jadon Sancho, and so on and so forth. Like, those are the goal scorers this year.
And when you look at like the last season, we finished in the top 4. So if you go back just a couple years, 2021, 22, you had
that feels
Mason
like
Mount,
forever ago, doesn't it? Fucking hell.
Feels, now that we're in 2025, that feels Asian. It was Mason Mount with 11, Kai Havertz with 8, Lukaku with 8, Jorginho with 6, of which all of those were penalties. Pulisic with 6, Reece James with 5, Marcus Alonso with 4, Timo Werner with 4, Hakim Ziyech with 4, Rudiger with 3, Silva with 3, Trev Chalobah with 3, Chilwell with 3, Conte with 2, Kovacic with 2. Like, everybody who was playing for the team in the Premier League, like Asby had 1, Callum had 1, Ross Barkley had 1 on like 200 minutes.
Be real though, that was not a free scoring team.
No, it was 76 hard worked goals for that goals.
Team. Yes.
Like, there was definitely like squeezing that to the maximum to try to get as much out of it. And like, to your point, that drop off right now is 13-9, 5, 3, 2, 2, and a bunch of ones. But you have people like Levi Colwell, no goal contribution yet for the entirety of his season with all the set pieces that we've had. Malo Gusto, no random one.
Should have 3 or 4. Good Lord.
Wes Fofana, no set piece goal potentially within the amount of time that he's had. Tosin shows up against the Shrimps and beats down on them. Has not yet had an opportunity in his 600 plus Premier League minutes to score a goal yet. Lavia has assisted. He's not gotten a goal yet off of his 400 plus minutes. I mean, so there's, Mudryk had 150 minutes before he went on his time away, his extended vacation. And he has not had a goal contribution or goal in the Premier League this season. It's like there's an issue with like some players not actually getting a goal, but then there's also an issue with like the amount of goals being contributed by anyone who's not Cole Palmer, and hoping that Nico Jackson would potentially accelerate a little bit above his expected goal amount. Like, he is technically like just below what his expected goal amount is. So like, we can kind of hem and haw, like, with it, like, expected goal is also a lot of like contribution of like some terrible shots too. So like, he has taken some terrible shots that have had a pretty low goal contribution, and they just add up over time. But it is the Madueke, Fernandez, Sancho, and Nkunku, Caicedo, everybody else who falls beneath them to be a contributor in some way, shape, or form. And like, that just hasn't shown up for this team. And I think part of that comes back down to like, what's happening on the wings? How is the overlap happening? It's not with our right back and our left back situation right now. And like, it is really forcing everything either to come centrally, to take a bounce, to get played on the perfect pass. Because if that doesn't happen, this team is struggling to score.
Yeah. And I look at, this team that has all this attacking talent. I think we were all salivating about, having such depth in attack. And, I'm worried about the midfield and you're worried about the defense, and we're all worried about the goalkeeper. But the attack was something that I think we were all relatively confident in heading into the year. And I get that, we've largely played 2 different teams in 2 different competitions. It probably isn't fair to judge Christopher Nkunku on his Premier League minutes or Joao Felix on his Premier League minutes. But just like across the board, if we're going to look at, how this team performs in front of goal, to me, it feels very, very vibes based, which is great in good times and bad in bad times, right? I think when I think back to the Brighton performance earlier this season, when it was just vibe city, right? Cole played that crazy pass to Neto across to Jackson. We were winning balls in the opposition third and creating a bunch of chances, and the players were smiling and they were joyous and they were all over it for each other. Vibes were good. They were really, really good. When we went up to Everton, vibes not so good. When we went to Ipswich, vibes very bad, right? Like, and I want to see the gaps between those performances shrink.
Hmm.
Because when we have played some of our best football this year, it's been fantastic. It's been really, really fun. When the team is not vibing, when they're not feeling good, when they're not confident in front of goal for whatever reason, it's pretty tough. It's a pretty tough watch. And I think the thing that I'm most worried about right now, Dan, is the pattern that I'm seeing first half to second half.
Yeah.
Reminiscent of last year, reminiscent of previous seasons. I think a lot of Chelsea fans are having flashbacks right now. And I think the first half, outside of missing some clear-cut opportunities, 2-3 up, we should have been 3 up in the first half, flawless. It was great. Good watch. Passing was super crisp. Everything felt, we were working our way into space. We were getting 3-on-3 breaks against their back line, all that sort of stuff. The second half, we waited to get punched in the face, and we got punched in the face twice. And then we had to figure out if we could claw something back, and only through a Reece James free kick at the end, which, was great. It's a phenomenal free kick, right? Again, can't place it any better if you threw it. But it was not a good performance in the second half. It was a chaotic, panicked, players forgetting how to break press, that sort of thing. And that's happened multiple matches in a row. Very good coming out of the blocks in the first half, very bad in the second half. That's not a way to win football matches unless you are scoring 3 or 4 goals in the first half. Then you can afford to shit the bed in the second half, which is still not what I prefer. But when you aren't scoring those goals, you aren't getting the good vibes in, that second half, it feels like the team just takes a nosedive, and that's not good.
Yeah, I think if you look at first half to second half from like a stats perspective, it completely tells the story that you are so eloquently painting with your words. I mean, we had 1.94 expected goal in the first half to the 1.6, I'm sorry, 0.16 expected goals for Bournemouth. They only had one shot in the entirety of the first half. Like we held and we didn't, and like it was pretty even distribution with possession, 52-48 Chelsea to Bournemouth. So it wasn't like we had the ball and we just never gave them an opportunity. They had plenty of opportunity to present the ball. We had 13 shots, 5 big chances. Like we definitely had every opportunity in that first half to walk away with this one. And what we're seeing, I think in this one, Lavia comes back into the team, is fit and available, has been working himself back from, I mean, he was beginning of December was the last time he was involved in
Spurs.
actual Premier League minutes.
Yeah.
So we knew he was not going to last the entirety of the game. He has a drop off heading into the second half in terms of his performance, because there's like maybe a conditioning question there on like how ready is he for 60-70 minutes. The answer was he's not. So that change predicates a change with Reece James coming in, which pushes Caicedo forward, right?
Mhm.
So like now you have a situation where, well, maybe was Reece good enough for 55 minutes or from 55 forward, because he took a little bit of time to warm up in this match, which put us in a situation where Semenyo definitely was on one today and was very comfortable running down that left-hand side, our right-hand side, which put Josh into some really tough situations, which he did not have his best game. Like, I think it's very fair to say, like, hey, as much as we praise the Cobham youth and we talk about the way that they do, like, not a game he's going to look back on and be like, hey, that was my favorite game I played, but great learning opportunity for him today on how not to get taken to the cleaners. So that this is good learning opportunity for him here. And then also, Mataweke's drop off, he probably could have been subbed earlier too, because he looked like he was getting back up to full fitness as well. That whole right-hand channel became the outlet for where Bournemouth were starting to really frustrate us and pressure us. And then the question becomes, okay, well, if we know this is the issue, we know we're not getting the overlaps, we're not getting Caicedo down, Madueke is basically having to go all of it himself down the right-hand side. What's Enzo Maresca's solution to this? What is he going to do? And it feels like he really missed a beat, particularly with the timing of that goal, to have made the changes prior to that, because you started to see where Bournemouth were at, the shots that they were taking, how they were really rising into the game. I mean, they had 6 total shots in the second half. We had 13, though, to be fair, some of those 13 came very, very late in the 90th plus type of time frame, multiple in that time frame. Whereas you look at what was happening with Bournemouth, like they were okay in the 48th minute, we're going to take a shot. In the 50th, which is the penalty, we're going to take that opportunity. The 62nd minute, Brooks almost put himself in a situation to be a villain of epic history, not being sent off and scoring a go-ahead goal. So you had clear warning signs that they were being welcomed back in this game, and he didn't make the adjustment. So I think that's where maybe my kind of question is aimed at Enzo Maresca for, hey, when do you feel like you need to be more proactive about these subs when you know the fitness is of the utmost importance?
Yeah, I mean, they're huge blinking warning signs for sure. So part of this argument to me is how, I think we questioned last season, is there a mentality drop off at halftime? Like, I think a lot of folks make jokes, man, Pochettino's putting them to sleep at halftime and they come out of sleep and then it takes us forever to get back into the game and we always have to claw something back or blah, 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 blah. I think we all remember that. Part of it's a mentality thing. Why are we not coming out with the same energy that we've already exhibited that we can do, right? Should have been, based on XG, should have been 2-0 at half. You argue it could have been 3 or 4. Yeah, I wouldn't fight you on that. The second thing is then you see this, if you're Enzo Maresca, you see that the mentality isn't there. You see that the performance isn't there. You understand that you have a guy on the field just coming off an injury who isn't going to play a full 90. You have a guy on the bench who is looking to get some minutes back in his legs. And you have other talent that you didn't use in this game, right? You could have used Malagusto if you really wanted to. Could have used Nkunku. Could have used Mark Guiu, right? I mean, you could have figured that out. And the changes come, one in the 56th minute, great, whatever. 71st, 81st. It's really, really, really hard to impact the game in the 81st minute when you come out as a sub. Pedro Neto didn't even get his first 4 touches in anywhere close to his body. He looked like a baby deer out there. So, again, I think there's some serious questions to be asked of Enzo Maresca after today. What's going on? Not only with the mentality and the way that your team is brilliant for the first 45 minutes and then shell-shocked the second 45, but where is your awareness to what these things look like? Because I think if you would have seen a sub at halftime for Lavia, I think a lot of people would have been disappointed. Knowing what we know now, that would have been the right choice. And coaches at this level have to make a ton of difficult decisions every single match. And sometimes they get them wrong. Sometimes they get them right. He's been, he's had a mixed bag this year of that, but it's now a trend. And you have to figure out how to get the trend in the other direction.
Yeah. Not a enviable position to be in other than collecting a very, very large paycheck.
Yeah, no, I'd take that check tomorrow if he wants to donate it over here.
So to your point about subs getting up and getting involved in the game with the amount of time they have in 9 minutes across Pedro Neto and Joao Felix, one shot, one combined shot across the two individuals, which is much more than the 5 shots between Jadon Sancho and Adam Madueke had in their time on the pitch. But of those 5, none of them were actually a shot either on or off target. All of them were blocked.
All blocked, yeah.
Which, I mean, again, credit to the way that Bournemouth set up. They had an identity. They knew what they were going to do. They were going to make life difficult. They were not going to give Chelsea a ton of space. They were going to force them to play centrally over the top, very quick to catch them off guard. And like when you're not refreshing the team, the ability to play quick really diminishes.
Mhm.
Like there was that section of time between, I would say, even I would say like 55th minute to like the 75th minute before the subs kind of got up and running, where we passed around and like we thought, okay, well, if we make one more pass as they're closing down on us, trying to force an error, trying to
Yeah.
force a turnover, that we'll be able to play through this. And like we do not do a great job of playing through really, really strong, stalwart defensive setups. Like that is just not who this team is. And so like
We
that is the how do you play around? How do you play through that appropriately? And like that is where some different profile of player in terms of a recruitment standpoint, like a bruiser. I mean, maybe a little bit more of an opportunity for Felix to play and contribute because we saw that he can do that in other games. But there's some type of the way that we're planning and then also who we're putting on the pitch to try to execute that's not coming together. And then that all comes down to as much as there's a point to like, hey, the players didn't execute, there's also a manager who holds full accountability for everything that happens, even if they didn't kick the ball.
It's true. I mean, you have to have a plan B. And what's odd about this is like we played through their press all the first half. Bing, 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 up the field, right? 4 or 5 passes, break. Good. Second half, panic. Don't know where everyone is. The personnel gets changed up. Players aren't in the positions where they need to be. And then you don't have a plan B. You don't have a route A ball that you can consistently hit to get out wide. I mean, not to go back to Tuchel, who, I'm only bringing up because he was there today, but like you always had that ball out to the wing, no matter what. In any scenario, whether we were playing possession dominant or counterattack, you always had Reece or Chilwell that you could ping the ball to consistently, and they would kind of recycle or start the ball up the wing and be able to go. We don't really have that. Nico is really, really good as a hold up player for his size and the way that he plays, but he's not a leaper. Like he's not going to be the one to chest it, bring it down, like do the whole thing. Like if the ball comes into his feet, he can do a hell of a lot with it. But he's not going to be the aerially dominant sort of Giroud type back to goal striker. What is that plan B when you're getting the shit kicked out of you? What is the escape hatch? I don't know if we've shown that we have one this year, and that needs to be developed this season because this will not be the last time where plan A doesn't work. Like we need to be able to go to a plan B and shock them right back and go, all right, you want to fuck around and find out? Here's our plan B. We're going over the top and we're going to burn you for a couple goals. And it's going to make you rethink everything that you've been doing.
Let's take our last ad break. When we get back, we do want to talk about where does this put Chelsea in terms of a end of season expectation. Can they make changes? I think they can. There's time left in the transfer window. There's time left to work as an organization to figure this out. So I think there is some hope for optimism, but also couching in a reality, which is what we want to do here too. So stay tuned. We'll be right back. All right, look, not all doom and gloom, but we are definitely putting ourselves in a position as a football club and as supporters of that football club of having to walk the tightrope without a net. And we weren't holding a blindfold before, but a blindfold has basically been put over our eyes. And we're being asked to walk across it, Nick. It is the finest of margins at this point in terms of a top 4, top 5 finish for this team as Chelsea now at 21 matches played, 17 Premier League matches left remaining. I mean, that gives you, 51 available points. Chelsea are not going to win 51 more points, just to be very fair about it. So where does that put us? I know that you were mathing before we came onto this pod to try to talk about what our expectations should be and what Chelsea need to do in order to finish in an area where we want them to as fans and supporters.
Yeah, I mean we have 17 matches left, right? We're on 21 matches played. Do you want to read Opta's expected before I get into my own very detailed analytical projections?
It's a crazy table. So Opta Analyst, which is their site, we'll retweet it and we'll kind of maybe we'll try to stick in the show notes here. We'll post a comment of the YouTube video. They do based upon the expected goals for and the expected goals allowed. They create their table of like where people should be, but then they funnel it into like what your expected points would be. And then they do a simulation or several simulations to come up with an aggregate simulation of this is what the end of the season table would look like. And right now, as disgusting as this sounds, they have Liverpool at 86 points. They have Arsenal in second at 77 points, almost 78, because they use fractional points. So sorry. Man City third on 68 points. Newcastle on fourth, 66 points. Nottingham Forest on 65.89 in fifth. Chelsea in sixth on 65.79. And then Bournemouth at 58.7. So, yeah, that's where they say it's going to be. That's not where it is today, but Chelsea do have a tough run of fixtures at the very, very end of the season. There is some winnable fixtures within the time frame of now until the end of May or May effectively, where you kind of need to rack up the points before we head into a final month of the season that is not very kind from a fixture run.
Well, yes, Dan, I was reckless and out doing math this afternoon. And
Shocking.
I didn't like it either, frankly. And right now, Chelsea, 17 games left in the season, in the Premier League season. 10 played at home, 11 played away. We are only winning 40% of our home matches, 4 wins, 4 draws, 2 losses, and winning roughly 55% of our away matches, 6 wins, 3 draws, 2 losses. We have 24 goals scored away, 17 at home, conceded 13 away and home, and are roughly a plus 15 goal diff. So if you extrapolate that form out, so you get 9 matches at home, you get 8 matches away through the end of the season, that would roughly equate to something close to 14 more points at home. That if we just took the form and transplanted it through the end of the season, regardless of opposition, whatever, and then basically you're going to get 16 points away. So a total of 30 points. 30 points plus our current table position of 37 points would only put us at 67 points through the end of the season. And like I said, at the beginning of the year, you roughly want to win 75% of your home matches and 50% of your away matches. Those numbers essentially put you at 72 points if you're able to achieve those two things. 72 points in almost any Premier League season is top 4 and probably closer to top 3. What 67 points gets you is not nearly as kind or comfortable. And it will require other teams to go through some rough patches to kind of get to that number. Now, 67 points, essentially you pip Spurs last season for 5th place, which again would have been hilarious. And we finished on 63 points. So that's only 4 more goddamn points that we needed to do that. The year before that, in 22-23, 67 points gets you tied with Liverpool at 5th. The year before that, in 21-22, 67 points leaves you outside looking in, and essentially in 6th place. The year before that, 67 points gets you exactly where Chelsea was, 4th on 67 points. And finally, just for a 5-year average, 67 points in 2019-20, which was a weird year where Liverpool just dominated everybody and won the league going away, it would have got you 3rd place, 67 points. So not comfortable. In one of those scenarios, you finish 3rd. In another scenario, you finish 6th, but on average, you finish in 5th. And what that means right now is that if Chelsea do not do anything different, that there is a huge chance that, they could make Champions League in 5th place or potentially, like last year, be on the outside looking in, unless, they do something crazy and win a cup or something like that. And that gets, kind of factored in. But it is a very uncomfortable situation because of this run of 5 matches. Even if you win 2 of the last 5, or even if you win one and get a couple of extra points, your whole trajectory can look different. And I know that matches are not played with math. I know they're played on the pitch, and those results can change dramatically. We could go on a win run again of 8 in a row or something like that. But it makes it super, super uncomfortable. So that's where we're going to leave that. But I just wanted to do a little light math on a Tuesday afternoon.
Well, it is a good point. And I think the benefit of having the 5th spot most likely is a
pure coefficient luck and circumstance, though, right? Like,
look. I'm gonna take what the math gods have given us, and that involves things like coefficients in European competitions, looking very, very unlikely. And we're gonna do our part by winning the Conference League. In a 5th place finish would be enough for a Champions League spot. I think your point, though, the will Man City continue this form? Will Newcastle continue their hot run? Like, they have been red hot at the moment. I mean, they have the best 5-match fixture run out of anyone in the Premier League right now. 5 wins in a row, no losses, no draws. I mean, Nottingham Forest has a great run of 4 wins and a draw, but like their hot form, they are way overperforming their XG total. Like, Arsenal are getting hit with injuries. Like, they have to probably go buy a striker with Jesus out now with his leg injury, with Havertz being persona non grata to the Arsenal Fan TV contingent. Like, I think there's a lot here, that there is instability in most of these teams in and around us. And like, we are having our bad run now. And the thing that is coming upon this Chelsea team is to break out of this slump, which we showed 45 minutes today that would give you some confidence that we have a pathway to get back to playing winning football as we get fit, as we get players available, as we potentially don't get into re-injury issues. Like, we are not so over indexed with fixtures for the next bit here, where we wouldn't be able to actually play the strongest 11 in the Premier League every match for now a significant run of time. Like, so I think if I'm looking at things that give me some confidence, now we couldn't play Man City when they were on their slump, which is unfortunate. But I mean, you have Wolves next, you have West Ham as well. We have the weird, you play Brighton twice away within a couple of days of one another. But then you have Villa, you have Southampton, you have Leicester, you have Arsenal. Like, that takes you into the break mid-March. How can you get maximum points out of that run? Like, that is the next thing to go figure out. And actually, I would even say, pull it back one more. The most important game, it's very much like a old school Patriots mentality. It's the next game is the most important. Just get Wolves across the line.
Yeah.
Just get City across the line. Just get West Ham across the line. Don't think about the next one, what you have to do the remainder of the season. Just get it done in the match ahead of you, because you pick up 3 points there. That now puts you in a situation where if any of the teams around us drop points, you are now giving yourself that just even a little bit extra breathing room that would feel so much better, would offer so much relief, which would reduce the amount of mental strain and stress this team has, this manager has, and we as supporters would also appreciate that too.
For sure. I mean, every result that you get decreases the amount of work that you have to do at the end of the year. Right. So part of the reason why Chelsea fans
opposite of what I did in college, I left it all to the end of the semester.
Your boy's a procrastinator, so I know this pressure quite well. But like this is why we were feeling so good. Oh my God, we're overperforming. Oh my God, we started fast. I was so worried that we were going to start slow. And in fact, it feels like the opposite now, where we're in the middle and we got a little comfortable, and now it's not gone that well. Like, even if you had won 2 of the last 5 games, what that does to your table position, go from being an additional 2 points in there, essentially, right? Or 4 points. So we'd be up to like 40, 41 points.
Be level with Nottingham Forest.
Yeah. I mean, and how does that make you feel compared to where we currently are, which is 1 Newcastle result away from being out of top 4? right? Like this is the vibe, and I just want to like call that out, that there is a mentality that some teams have where they can just go on a tear, a bunch of matches undefeated, vibes are good, whatever. I think this team can do that. They've shown that they can do that. My question is, can they do that when the expectations are there? That is going to be the thing to watch. And if they can, this will, I think, go down as one of our favorite Chelsea watches in a handful of years. If they can't, there's going to be a hell of a lot of questions asked about the recruitment, about the coaching, about the level of the players, and it's not going to be a fun offseason again.
Well, look, we have plenty more conversations to be had around what's happening in the transfer window. We'll have our friend Matt Law back a couple more times this month to give us a rundown on what's going on. Obviously, there's the Nkunku Bayern Munich type of situation that may or may not happen, may or may not transpire. There was the Renato Vega and Dortmund type of situation, which was looking like it was happening and then actually isn't happening. And he's
So
very happy
weird.
to be here. It's, again, a true 2.5 3 month silly season condensed into 1 month during the time of year where everybody is trying to get back into the swing of things after the holiday season. Not the most fun thing, but that's gonna do it for this episode. I think we've talked a lot about where Chelsea at, where we're heading, players that maybe are still contributing, can be counted upon, but players that we also have some questions about heading into this next run of fixtures. But again, if Chelsea can just do their own business, that puts them in the best position. And so, as much as we would like other teams to slip up and to falter and to fall and to banana peel themselves, we just have to get our job done. But that's going to do for this episode. So, thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for supporting the podcast. Don't forget to leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Subscribe on YouTube. Get involved with our free newsletter. Join our free or paid version of the Discord community. And if you're thinking about going to London, you should just come and do it with us as a part of our London trip.
Hit us up. We can be part of the winning streak.
There you go. We will help deliver maximum points during our time over there, and you can help make it happen. But until next time, Chelsea fans, you know what to do. Keep the blue flag flying high.